In department reports, point 5, some information on the complex roof. Number 6, fire department FD&H, fire department report. And under new business, there's National Day of Honor point being brought forward. With those 3 small changes, is there a member of the agenda? Reach and Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if any. Okay. So, for the Reeves report, it was sort of an impromptu parade in many ways, but the Zone C1 Legion Ladies Auxiliary held their annual meeting in Wingham yesterday, and a number of them marched from the Legion to Cenotaph, where there was a service, and marched back to the Legion. And it was interesting watching the number of people hearing the bagpipes came and watched the procession on the street. It was a very strong point of honor, and thank you to all the people in Wingham that did take the time to come out and watch. Thank you. Moving to reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Move approval.
Wadden and McGowan. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Do you want to take first announcing the deputation? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Reed. Len Robinson wanted to take a minute to thank and congratulate Leonard Robinson, who's been a township employee in Public Works for 19.5 years. And Len just retired, and wanted to wish you all the best in retirement. So, thank you for your dedication and hard work.
Thank you.
You get the words out in the box, too. See?
Here, get the big card.
Thanks a lot.
Then
Appreciate
you
coming in.
scurry and grab a camera.
Can I get one? I'll give it to you. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
One more.
I'll just
Let me just step ahead.
Henry.
Oh, Tracy wants to get one.
Yeah.
Okay, then you get more powerful the slower it is.
Come on, me.
Well, just listen.
One more, please. Say something.
Thanks a lot. Congratulations. And now I wanted to recognize Doug Heidenhoven from the Maitland River Community Church.
Thank you. I usually bring some entertainment for council, so this on April 26th, 40 volunteers from the Maitland River Community Church and from the Wingham VIA, the partnership project, decided to do the Broken Branches Blitz. And as you know, we had lots of branches fall down in the beginning of the winter there. And so we went around and 40 volunteers cleaned up 28 work sites in 4 hours. There was dumper loads, trailers are good. So I have a little short 1 minute and 45-second video to show you. Look around. Maggie came out too.
I'm not a stranger to kindness. You're broken with your life silence. You're gospel to me, and I breathe it every day. Carry on, because it's a miracle. Never change your dream until I'm gonna sing it till we make. Come on, be a rejoice. I'm gonna take it to the streets. We gonna get on this stage. Never time to raise our voice.
Well, there you go. We had a lot of fun. It was an honor to serve the town in that way. Primarily senior citizens, one person with disability, and some single-parent households for help out through the Broken Branches Blitz. Good time. And thankfully the weather held out too. The important point of business why I'm here is regarding the Maitland River Community Church Phase 2 addition. We are considering, we're doing some long-range planning, so it's not going to happen like tomorrow or this year, but you have to start the planning process. So this is a view of our church driving on Josephine Street North. I think it's not actually back up one. There we go. So there's the Libro intersection there at Alfred, and so driving down the main street, you see the church coming up on the left side there. There's, as it comes a little closer, gorgeous building, isn't it? Just kidding. And turn to the right, there's Petropolis and the old Wing train station right across the road from the church. We're trying to help you get oriented with where we are. And so here we're driving on past the church. There's a parking lot and a sign on front. There's a straight on front view. And the yellow building that you see is affordable on the back side there, which is where the toddlers and crawlers, the children's ministry are located on Sunday mornings. And so then this is the north side yard of the property, and there is the community trail, the entrance to the community trail and parking. And here's just a little bit past looking back toward the church as we get by. So that just helps you understand where this property is located. And there's actually from the parking lot of the community trail looking at the church. That's the better looking angle of our church. I'm just kidding. And so what I did just to help you get perspective is, or maybe back up a little bit, we are zoned, by the zoning, we're allowed to build up to the property line on the north side. Okay, so we're allowed to build to the property line, but the problem is if we build the property line, we aren't allowed to put any windows in that wall. Building code says fire protection from your neighbor who might also want to build to the building yard, to the side yard. You can't be putting window openings on that side. So, I met with Dave Black and Sally McMullen, and Dave found in the building code there is a provision if you can get an agreement, a legal agreement with the neighboring property owner that they will restrict themselves from building within a distance on the side there, then you're allowed to put openings in. And that's really what our request is about. is there's an agreement in your agenda that's John Shank has done all the legwork on, talked to the Huron County people, and they're in agreement with how he structured this. And so it's, and Gary knows more of the technical details on that. And so what we're seeking is a 5-meter restriction of building within 5 meters. And so you can see a little yellow line on the ground, and that is a measuring tape pulled out, and that fine young man standing there in the black coat, he's standing at the 5-meter mark. So that gives you an idea of where this restriction would work. The dogwood shrubs are all on the community trail park. They were planted years ago to provide a bit of a buffer between the two properties. And where all those tree stands and garbage pails are, that is actually the parking area of the community trail right there. So that gives you like a visual. I just put another angle showing a little more back there. And from across the street, that's what it looks like. Where Kevin's standing is the 5-meter spot. So, and this is the view of the church shrubs, and then this is the community trail park. They were planted. This is where all those trees standing. So I'm just trying to show you. This is the elevation, and then this is imposed over top of it. What the phase 2, what the building would look like in phase 2. Obviously, a nice improvement. The building would basically double in size, actually more than double in size on the north side there. This is a floor plan, and it's actually laid down the way it is. Looking at it, Josephine Street is on the right side, and the front of the building is to the right, the rear of the building is to the back. The lines in black are the existing building. The other colored lines are the proposed phase 2 addition. That's actually a plot plan, a little bit technical there. So the next one here shows you the plot plan with the parking, phase 1 and the phase 2 addition. You'll see how close it gets to the property line on the north side there. So that is pretty much it. Oh, I have a authentic original here to show you as well. So that's what it would look like right there, or the first draft. So it certainly is going to help improve the look of the main street of that end. So that is our presentation. Any questions?
James.
She would be for the classroom.
Yes. Yeah, the portable would be, that would provide the additional classroom space that we're going to be needing. I also met with Pat Newsom and Dave Black on site and looked at it. I'm not sure if you want to comment at this time or later on in the meeting.
What you prefer?
Whichever you wish, Pat.
Okay.
Very agreeable to that.
All right. Well, basically, I mean, we just wanted to get ourselves oriented, Dave Black and I, to the site to understand the property line, and really, we don't foresee any issue or any structure being built where the trail begins. So this agreement is all good as far as we're concerned, and we support the proposal that they're putting forward.
Just wanted to use the dogwoods and that obviously probably would go, or no, they'd still be remaining.
Yeah, they're actually on the community trail property.
So okay, so it is far enough over in the trail. Maybe they haven't made any comments yet, or I don't imagine they have any issues. But
No, I mean, it doesn't impact our property at all. It's still there. It's just if we had ever wanted to put a building on our property, we would have to be further away from the property line. I can't foresee a future where that would be the case based on the location and what's currently there. So it doesn't, they don't impact our property at all.
The view from the trail will greatly improve.
Yes.
yes,
Gary, just a quick note for council that as you know, the agreement agreement between the township and Maiden River Community Church prepared by John Shank is part of the bylaws to be adopted later on. And it is proposed that the agreement be registered on title for both the church property and the trail property.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your group.
And it's great to have a group come together, help the seniors and other ones that they have trouble cleaning up the excess branches. And it's one thing cleaning up a few leaves, but when you get into branches, it's a lot more trouble.
Yeah, there was one site where Murray was certainly using the chainsaw. We very hard to take down. He's got his license.
We know.
We checked it first. Okay.
Todd,
Okay,
don't forget the rest of your computer.
Connie, you want to lead off the homecoming committee?
Sure, I'd like to welcome some members of the delegation for homecoming. Jason Goodall is here, Trevor Syke is here. Looking around the room, yourself and myself, I guess, are members of the homecoming committee. I think Jason's going to be speaking. I just need a second.
Sure.
So we as well did a presentation. Thank you, Council and Connie, for having us, and Gary and Reed. Thank you very much. So we're about 13 weeks away from homecoming. So it's August 1st long weekend. What we're doing here tonight is just giving you an overview of our plans and discussions. So hopefully it will pop up here in a minute. Our site plan, everything will be held at the complex. There will be kids' events throughout the town, but they aren't really labeled within our plan, I guess. There's something they're having the splash pad revitalization opening, so that's one of the things that kids will be doing as well. So I guess through my handout, sorry I didn't have enough for the audience, but it'll come up here in a minute. The first page is our site plan. So that's just the arena parking lot complex. So we're looking, we will talk to Flash Electric. We will be drawing power out of the Knights Hall. They can do that. So we will power out to the parking lot. We will have a tent 60 by 120, another tent 40 by 100. We're having a volleyball court down there and a kids tent as well in the grass area. There's stage as well, many porta potties. And we're having the big electrical spools that wrap the wires around. We're having those as stand-up tables. So these grounds will be, we have security of ISM. Anytime there's an event going on, there will be security there. The town police are also patrolling, and we will have volunteers as well. The next slide. Let's see.
That's good. Stop.
We are, that shows you our start of our bus route. So We will be providing buses throughout town. We're having 2 shuttles throughout the day and evening. Later, I will be requesting per driver, hoping to close it, so I'll be putting a motion for council in that regard. This will be our emergency route through Highway 86 and 4 as well. So the next slide shows the bus routes that we have planned. Leaves the complex, goes east on 86 to Carling Terrace, down Carling Terrace to Charles Street, to Shooter Street. The Libro parking lot will be one of our bus stops. I forgot to mention the high school will be as well. It goes throughout town to the Legion, and there's another stop at the dollar store in Middleton's. So we're having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bus stops for people throughout town. The next slide is our arena layout. For the arena, we are only having our dinners there and our opening ceremonies and a CKNX barn dance. So we were hoping to sit 600 people for dinners. So it's going to be a rotating in and out dinner, I guess. It'll be from 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock. So we're hoping not everyone will come. We're hoping to sell about 1,000 to 1,200 tickets. So the next slide is our tent layout. These are the brown spots are the picnic tables. The white spots are the schools, Meyer schools. The green on the right are the porta potties, and the brown on the right is an access road to the bar area. And there's going to be some dumps right there, dump boxes. What do we call them? Garbage bins. And there'll be 3 vendors. Yes, there you go. 3 vendors. We're hoping that will be there. And the stage is in the southwest corner, I guess.
Close to the sign at the complex.
So the next one is kind of a close-up of the tents. We have 90 picnic tables on order. They're delivered and set up. So. Next one. This is our bar area. We have a 24-foot bar. It's in 3 8-foot sections. The in and out, we will have like cattle fencing to align people. So you go in one side, you come out the other side.
Electric?
It might be by then. It's just we bartended in music and fields, and that's how they do it. It works really well. Keeps the people moving, keeps the flow of the people.
I have a good chance.
We'll get Fletch to look at it. The next one. That's again that's the bigger tent, so it will be pretty much filled up with picnic tables. We will be selling drink tickets at the far end of the tent, and we will have just a beer-only bar to lessen the crowd at the front of the main bar as well. The next slide, this is our timeline of events. This starts from Sunday evening prior to the long weekend, so a week before. There's events that we will be doing for setup, and at the end it will be the carry-out. So, I'm going to go to the next. There's just 2 pages of schedule there. This page is we've been meeting with Pat and her group in discussions for support from the municipality. There's various categories, I guess, that we've broken things out to. So we, as Homecoming, will be responsible for some of the things, and Pat's group will be responsible for some of the things as well. So there will be township resources involved.
I'd like to just interject, and Kelly.
And
Public
Kelly,
Works,
yes, as well. So we've had probably 3 or 4 meetings for all this stuff, plus back and forth emails. So we appreciate their support in all of this and helping us through this. So I'm not sure if we need to go through each one. You like? You can, but if not, that's fine. If there's any questions about that, that's the last page of the presentation. If there's any questions?
Just have a quick one, Jason.
Sure.
And this is kind of throwing it out at council too, because we have previously talked about this. We're actually paying the mortgage off in that building down there this year, and we have the homecoming and all the people that supported it through all the years. I wonder if we could have a mortgage burning ceremony.
I like it.
We can put it on the agenda.
Again, I just threw this out at council. I'm just, would you guys be interested in that? I'm sure everybody would really be happy to see that happen.
I think that's a great idea.
Can you sign somewhere?
Certainly can. Can we have another fire?
Close it's contained.
We'll get Dave that day off.
Here, just on that point, Councillor, just a reminder that the Knights of Columbus are still under agreement to pay their pledge commitment to the township. I'm all in favor of Range from Fire to celebrate the paying off of that mortgage as well. However, just a reminder that the Knights are obligated to pay that, and they certainly made the commitment to us to pay it off as well. But it may not be received favorably by them.
We could talk, but it's not talk and see what they think. But we have an idea of the thing that everybody understands. It's, we're moving forward as a community. And, if you or I want to touch bases with you, I want to touch bases with them. I personally don't see a problem. It's better to be safe than sorry, you're saying?
Just an FYI for some.
We'll go ahead and not talk to them.
Okay. Yeah, no. If there's anything else, I also have a letter to council, and I sent that to Gary, so he will CC you or has provided it to you already.
Yeah, council should have it on the desk.
Okay, so I'll just read it out. It's, we are 13 weeks away from William Homecoming. The plans are coming together. Our committee is getting excited to host a weekend that highlights the best of what means to call William home. A fun-filled weekend is planned for July 31st to August 4th, 2014. With this letter, we are looking for North Huron Council to accept the following 4 requests from our homecoming committee. 1, to declare homecoming a municipally significant event. Number 2, that the noise bylaw be extended to 1 a.m. for the evenings of Thursday, July 31st, Friday, August 1st, Saturday, August 2nd, and Sunday, August 3rd. Number 3, the council agreed to donate in-kind support for homecoming from staff and other resources according to the chart that I had in the other presentation, listing rental fees, staff, police, tent permits, marketing, equipment setup, etc. For their support, for your support of homecoming, the township of North Huron will be recognized on all marketing materials as a platinum sponsor. Number 4, we will request that Kerr Drive can be closed from Thursday, July 31st at 3 p.m. to Monday, August 4th at 7 p.m. So feel free to contact me, but if you have any questions now, that'd be fine too.
Just looking through your list, you're using the in-kind items with regards to rental fees, staff. When you're talking about policing, you're not talking about security costs, right?
No, we are covering our own security costs as well.
Just, I figured that was the case, I just wanted to be clear.
Any other questions or comments from council?
So, small.
Okay. Any seconds? Scott?
Pat was asking about the parade route, but it's already been cleared by the lines prior to.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lance.
Thank you.
Is there any business from previous meetings? Okay, moving forward to department reports. The health and safety is just perusal. Moving to point 2, CAO clerk. Gary.
Okay, thank you, Reed. A couple months ago, we received expression of interest from Mr. Tony Saponia of Natural Farm Industry, and Mr. Saponia is interested in building a medical marijuana facility in Wingham, and his company is in the process of preparing an application to Health Canada to obtain a license to become a producer of medical marijuana. I know that Mr. Saponia has spoken with our Economic Development Officer as well as our planner, Sally McMillan. In fact, Sally will be here in a couple of minutes to provide some planning comments. It's important to note that licensed producers must comply with all federal, provincial, and municipal laws. And as part of his application to Health Canada, the proponent requires a letter, and he's requested a letter from the township stating that this type of production facility would be permitted by the North Huron zoning bylaw. Sally will be here in a couple of minutes to speak to the planning merits or provide any perspective on this proposal. But essentially, this proposal, this production facility, has industrial characteristics and therefore would be permitted in an industrial zone. And Sally is here. Thank you so much. So I can also confirm that Mr. Samponi is working with Connie on evaluating the suitability of a couple of properties in Wingham, in the industrial area. I think the rest of my report speaks for itself. So, just starting to cover off the proposal from Natural Farm Industry for the medical marijuana production facility. Appreciate that you're here to provide a planning perspective.
Sure.
But I haven't touched on any of the planning aspects.
Okay. You want me to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, so from a planning perspective, we look at the basic nature of the use, and my understanding of the Health Canada regulations are that the proponents of these facilities can produce, dry, so process, package, and ship, among some other things like testing, destroying, I think are the other terms there. But when we consider those activities, then it definitely has the character of an industrial use. So much like any other pharmaceutical, the industrial zone is the one where we would see that going, and that's supported by our official plan policies, where we have set out places for industrial lands, and we've done that based on proximity to, other types of uses, and wanting to have separation, and wanting to have industrial type businesses on servicing and on certain road infrastructure, some of the main roads. And so when we look at the types of uses that are permitted in an industrial zone in North Huron, we get manufacturing, assembly, making, preparing, inspecting, treating, altering, warehousing, and storing any goods, substance, article, or thing. So when I was asked about this, I recommended that it would be considered industrial. And there are other jurisdictions in Ontario that are following that same premise. Hanover being an example, and Niagara on the Lake being another example, and Hanover actually has a verbatim the same definition of industrial use that zoning bylaw does. So those two municipalities, as examples, have also permitted medicinal marijuana production facilities outright in industrial zones. I have had an opportunity to read a legal opinion, and that's an option, certainly. And it provides a slightly different perspective than just planning and land use and spatial relationships between things, which is what my perspective is. But I think if you decided to go the route of a legal opinion, what you're asking for in that instance is for an interpretation of the wording and how it would perhaps play out in court or something along those lines. So what doesn't appear in the industrial zoning is the word grow or growing. So insofar as these operations do grow from a plant as the majority of the space that's used within the building, that word isn't in the industrial definition. So I think a legal opinion would focus on that and say that if you wanted to permit it in this zone, then you should or could amend your zone to include the word, or amend the definition of industrial to include the word growing or grow. And that's, like I say, that's a legal perspective on what the meaning of the words production and manufacturing include or don't include. And so those are two perspectives that you can use to sort of make North Huron's choice on how you want to proceed. Whether or not you would consider the existing industrial definition to be sufficient, or whether you would like to get a legal opinion of your own and see what direction it would provide. But I think the bottom line, from my perspective, is that whether or not it's toothpaste or juice or Tylenol or medicinal marijuana, it's a legal product. It has regulations that set up the type of site and the type of characteristics that the industry has to maintain in order to be functional. And so when I look at those characteristics, I think the industrial zone is certainly where it would fit the best. And a zoning bylaw's purpose is to identify where you want things to go. And so if someone is proposing something legal, then you basically you find a place. And I would say that the place, not only is it industrial, I think, but it makes sense, and that in my opinion as a planner, I don't think that the definition needs to be amended to do that today. But that is a decision for you all.
Just the one question I had, this would be a particular plant, but if grow was in there, if somebody wanted to produce alfalfa sprouts or bean sprouts or whatever, that would be another way of covering that as well.
Yeah, and yeah, certainly. There's businesses like that are in industrial areas as well that grow sprouts as a food product that they're shipping, and they grow them within the building. So that's a comparable example of a similar industry with similar characteristics and processes that are functioning in industrial areas. And I think you would find examples where that has just happened outright, like as of right in an industrial area without an amendment. So if we took out medicinal marijuana and put in the words alfalfa sprouts or bean sprouts, we could be having the very same conversation.
Here, and Sally, I guess like any industrial development proposal, the planning department in the township would require that the proponent prepare various studies, whether it's a noise study, land use compatibility, servicing, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and so
those would be required of this applicant just like anybody else.
yeah, and if the zone is sufficient, like I am saying that it, in my opinion, that would be, then the trigger for those studies is a building permit. So if they don't require an amendment or they don't require an official plan amendment, then the next step that the planner provides to any developer is that in an industrial area you have to evaluate your setback from the nearest sensitive receptor like houses. So you have to do your noise and dust study. And the industrial area remains in a source water area, so I also recommended to this particular developer that they would want to look into the considerations they should make for that regulation, even though it's not in place yet. We do anticipate it probably within a year or two. So they should consider what source water protection planning they'll have to do in the future to locate at the north end of William, and it's exempt from some of the other studies, just sort of the laundry list of things that we go through because of its location. And I would also recommend site plan control, so that, like with every industrial use and every commercial use, we use site plan control to lay out the site, be sure all the setbacks are adhered to, look at outdoor lighting and security features, and this locating of recycling receptacles or parking spaces, all those kinds of things. So as yet, we would, like with every development, we want to see a detailed lot layout, but the first step is to figure out whether it's permitted in the zone.
I wonder if Kirk can give us any information on how many possible or potential jobs that might be related to, is there any indication of those sorts of statistics?
Excuse me, Connie,
I haven't
question
received.
to Mr. Spillane.
Yes, and I haven't received an answer to that yet. I know that he is preparing the document to come forward to council, but I had suggested that he put any of that information in.
So do we need to make a decision to proceed on this? Is that timely or?
I guess just further to my recommendation in my report, I'm requesting that council authorize the CMO clerk to send a letter to Natural Farm Industry informing them that the proposal has been shared with council, and that further that the proposed medical marijuana production facility would be permitted in an industrial zone.
I think
A second.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Thank you, Sally.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, moving to point 3 in the department reports, director of finance, Donna.
Thank you. Just to give you a little bit more information, this is again under the bylaws section. But we have with us now a new federal gas tax funding agreement. And it's the only permanent, stable, and predictable funding source for municipal infrastructure. And the gas tax fund is now permanent in federal legislation, and it's a 10-year agreement. So there's quite a few changes to this new funding agreement to what we're used to. One of the biggest changes is in the past that although all of the categories are infrastructure related, the categories have been expanded now to up to 17 eligible categories. And some of those that are of particular interest are that now some of those categories that the funding can be used for is relating to recreation and culture, where that has never been allowed before. It's always been roads, bridges, water, and sewer in the past. So there may be some opportunities as time goes on that we might be able to channel some of our gas tax money into the Memorial Hall project. Again, as Gary and I have talked about, we would like to avoid borrowing money for that project to meet our $500,000 commitment. So this might be a new opportunity to do that for sure. There are less reporting requirements. We've always had to go through a specified gas tax audit with our municipal auditors, and that provision has been removed, and the onus is now on the treasurer to do that internal audit function myself. There are also your asset management plan also plays a huge part of the gas tax funding, and any projects that you do have to be identified as a priority in your asset management plan. We're looking for some information in regard to the risk assessment survey, which is listed in the new information, but there's no guidelines at this time what that actually entails. So once those details come about, we'll have to complete that in order to be eligible to receive the money also. So just to give you some idea of the dollars, the amount is a bit less than what we're used to. In 2013, we're receiving $153,835, and in 2014, we'll get $12,416 less, or $141,418. So it lays out from, the schedule at this time lays out from 14 through to 2018. So for the first 2 years, 14 and 15, we get the same, and then in 16 and 17, it moves up to 146,000, and then in 2018, it bumps back up to 155,000. So again, we're always grateful for some stable sources of funding for sure. And there are some things now where the banking limit is 5 years as opposed to 3, so you can take up to 5 years to spend the money. And again, the gas tax contact can no longer be anyone except for the treasurer, so that's all waived in the categories as well. So it is good news for us, and we'll have to wait until some of the other information comes out, but they're still on schedule and plan to start flowing our funds. We normally get our funding in 2 payments, with the first one coming in July, and as long as everyone has their agreements back, the funding should still flow on time for this year. One of the other big changes is that in April of each year, you have to fill out forms online as to what you're going to do with the tax, the gas tax funding. So again, we haven't had to do that before, and sometimes we've been able to look at our projects and adapt the use of the gas tax funds there. You need to do some pre-planning, and again, that goes hand in hand with your asset management plan. So anyway, there are changes there, and this comes up with the full agreement. It's quite a lengthy document. I don't think the whole agreement was in the agenda packages. But if you have any questions on it, you can certainly contact myself or Gary, and it will come up to be passed by bylaw for the later meeting. So is there any questions on that?
Well, the next council would be able to make a plan as to what the usage would be of those funds. We don't need to make that decision now.
No, not at all. Okay, so if there's nothing further on that one, I'll leave that to come up under bylaws. And then the second item that I have for council approval tonight is As a requirement under the Development Charges Act that we have adopted in 2011, the treasurer is responsible to submit a statement to council and also to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs each year on the status and how much you've collected and what each of the categories of that reserve now contain. So in 2013, we did collect 3 of the development charges, 1 actually in Blythe, 1 in East Wawanosh, and 1 in Wingham. So that was a total of $7,526.06 in revenue that we collected. And our balance still shows as a negative, as you remember, that there was considerable costs associated with funding the original studies back in 2009, 10, and 11, when we got the study and went through all the processes in order to implement the development charges. So it will still be a couple of years before we see that move into a positive situation. The one other thing I just wanted to remind council was that at the end of last year, we had looked at the projects under sanitary sewage. So the only difference between the Blythe and East Wawanosh, Blythe and East Wawanosh amounts are exactly the same, where Wingham's is different. And Wingham had sewage projects, the 3 of those that are listed there as additional projects, which Blythe and East Wawanosh obviously don't have. So late last year, since the Forest Main project in Wingham and the Josephine project are both completed and have been funded, the most important project left in Wingham is that northwest trunk sewer replacement. So in the future, any of the Wingham development charges sewer portion will go to that one project only, starting January 1st, 2014. So that's basically a summary of the development charges. Does council have any questions on that?
Brock, was the Bill Street development calculated into that?
No, it was not.
It could have been, could it not?
You would have, yeah, you would have to go through, like it was never brought up or it was never part of the original study process back in 2009. Yeah. So when we were going through all of those studies, one thing though that Don and I did make provisions for is I believe council passed that resolution for the new water upgrades in Blythe, which were never part of that original. There are no water projects under the Blythe development charges amount. So we had a motion passed back in some of the earlier stages of the water process. So at some point, it is possible that we will be able to include that and amend Blythe's development charge for that.
Right. Gary, just a quick question. Council passed a motion, I think a few months ago or several months ago about Northwest Trunk Sewer and allocating more funds to that. Just to confirm.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yes, earlier was that all the funds now, any from January 1st, 2014, any Wingham sewer development charges that we collect, the sewer portion of that will go only to that project, and none of it will go to the Forest Main or Josephine Street any longer, because both of those projects we could if we wanted to, but both of those projects have been funded by other methods, so there's no point in funding, you know, we'd be paying back, and those projects have all been looked after one way or another. So the Northwest sewer is a big priority, so it doesn't make sense to allocate anything we collect in the future to that.
And there was a motion to that
Yes.
effect.
That's
Okay. Everybody happy with that? The one thing that when we have Donna here, that there's a very strong endorsement of Donna's skills and abilities from the Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario. We all knew that, but definitely congratulations from all of us, and it's very gratifying to see one of our staff endorsed so strongly by their association. So thank you very much for what you do for us. Okay. Motion on the development charges. Reach and Bailey. All in favor? Carried. Moving to the Director of Public Works, Gary, are you handling that? Or?
I can speak to this.
Okay.
Our Director of Public Works has prepared a staff report regarding the contracting of roadside grass cutting for 2014, 2015, and 2016, and this would be just in the east of Wallanosh Fort with Len Robinson retiring. We decided not to fill that position, and so we're looking at other ways to provide services, including the grass cutting, which was a major responsibility for that particular staff person over the summer. You'll see from Kelly's report that he has provided a lot of calculations as to the cost of providing this service by a township employee versus the cost of contracting this service out to another company. It should be noted that our neighbors, Morris Turnberry and Ashfield, Colborne, and Wallanosh, have used the services of a particular contractor for many years, and are quite happy with both the price and quality of work. You'll note from the report that the estimated savings on a yearly basis by contracting out would be something north of $5,000. We feel this is a conservative estimate, and it could be as high as $7,000 per year. So we are making a recommendation to council that roadside grass cutting be contracted for 2015, 2016 for East Wallanosh Ward.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Okay. And 3 seconds. I have a number of questions. I don't think that I'm going to express opinions on them, so I'm not leaving the chair for that. The one thing that I will say that this is one thing where we may not get a lot of people interested, but I think when it's the first time that we are contracting out, we probably should go to an RFP type of program, just for complete transparency. The one thing that I will say, we want to know where and how often the contract where the grass would be cut. I know that there was one stretch of road got cut 7 times last year, where some other parts didn't get cut.
Is this quite a question, right?
Yes. So that I think we want, if we're putting an RFP, I think we want to put in what we need to have and have it well specified. That's other points by council as to how they feel. James.
I think the other 2 municipalities, their roadsides are all cut twice a year. Morris and
2 Fence Lane, twice.
I think.
Okay. That would.
I knew one of the guys that did the cutting, and he said they had to cut them all twice.
Okay.
And 2 swaths down the side of the road on each side. Like 2 swaths down the side of the road, and they were cutting. They had specific specs that they had to.
Okay.
So I think it's to our interest to contact one of these other municipalities to see what specs they were actually using.
That would be, I believe, a good point. Other points, Ray?
I assume I could tell you did this or would pick when you got this price, did you not, or do we know what we're actually getting?
He's
For this, for the, you know,
Yeah, he's spoken with the contractor who has done work for the other municipalities, and the numbers are there in front of him.
yeah, but I'm just wanting to make sure that we're getting them for.
There's dollars and cents, but not the miles of cutting.
Right.
Is what I was questioning.
And that's a fair question, and Kelly's away at some training the next couple of days, and I can have him speak in the next council meeting on this, or we can get some information to council in the meantime.
I think so. It looks like it's a good enough field here already, as long as we know what we're getting. I think to know exactly what we're getting, so we can put this out to the next meeting. Any questions? Go on.
James.
Should we hold off on that motion until we have some more specifications?
It depends exactly what the motion says. You want to repeat it, or?
The motion from the director is that the township contract roadside grass cutting for 2014, 2015, and 2016 in East Wallingford Ward, North Huron.
Dave.
I'll move the table a motion until next meeting.
Ray seconds. Okay, it looks like we talk about it the next meeting. Okay, thank you. Oh. It's in suspense with the table motion. Vote on the table motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, there she is.
Projector working. And
Okay.
hard to get ready. Take some time. While this is just getting set up, I did drop on your desk another piece of information. It's about an upcoming yoga event at the complex. A number of people have donated their time and space and a few things to put on the Sisters in Fitness Presents a Morning of Yoga, and that is Saturday, May 24th. And participants can and make a donation. There are about 16 instructors involved in the day, and they've all donated their time. And proceeds are going to the Wingham District Hospital Foundation, the Logan Hallahan Fund. It's going to be a yoga in the morning with a number of instructors with live music and candle lights, and kind of an event we've never had before, and we're looking forward to it. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had that information in front of them. Thank you. So I would like to talk now, and I apologize, this was not ready for council packages. The tender closed on Friday, but I want to walk you through the process of selecting a vendor to proceed with our roof repairs at the North Huron West Cast Community Complex. So just to help orient you to the roof and give you some sense of what we have on top of the complex, this is the entrance here that you walk into the building at the front. So you go into a canopy and into the building. This we call, in this project, metal roof deck 2.0, and this is 2.1. So that makes up the entire sloped metal roof that we talk about in all the reports and in the summary I provided today. Then there are a number of flat roofs. This one we refer to as the roof deck 1.0. And then we have two small canopy roofs at the entrances here and here, and that's canopy roof deck 1.0 and 1.1. On the north side of the building, there's a back entrance here, and this is a flat roof, and that is the canopy roof deck where you walk into the back entrance. And then here's a flat roof which houses a number of the HVAC units for the pool, which is situated here. And then there's another back roof area here, flat roof. That's roof deck 1.2, roof deck 1.1, canopy roof 1.3. And you can't see it there. There's a little canopy roof right over here as well. And that is canopy roof deck 1.2. So the reason I'm kind of going through all of this, we have put a tender together, and with a budget of $90,000. We did not want to get our tenders back in above that. So what we did was we put in the scope of work to include all of the roof work that was in our recommendations on the metal sloped roof, both roof decks, sloped metal roof deck 2.0 and 2.1. Our major leaks in the flat roofs are coming in more in the front section of the building, especially in the Knights of Columbus Hall where all these HVAC units are. And so we have included all of that flat deck roof, the canopy roof here, and this one here in our tender scope of work. The back sections are also in need of repair, but in those sections we've highlighted a couple of scupper details, which is where the water drains out. And if you've ever walked in the back here or here, when the snow is melting, they put in an exit spot for the water to all run off, but no downspout. So it kind of rains there in a big fountain feature. So instead of making it a fountain feature, we have added the ability to, there is a drain that we can attach to that will add some eaves drop there and there. So that's all within the scope of work. So just to orient you a little bit, what I'm recommending here is that the North Huron hire Provincial Industrial Roofing and Sheet Metal Company Limited to perform the roof maintenance work outlined in the tender document, quote, North Huron West Coast Community Complex Roof Repairs 2014, for the price of $69,965. It is further recommended that Council direct North Huron Director of Recreation Facilities to negotiate additional roof repairs identified in the roof diagnostic analysis for the North Huron West Coast Community Complex on roof decks 1.1, 1.2, and canopy roofs 1.2 and 1.3. So those are these back sections that we did include. So with the remaining budget that we have, and if you look at the financials, you see we have some expenses. The tender bid of $69,965, our consultant at $5,597, leaving us just over $14,000. So I'd like to use that $14,000 if we run into any contingency issues in these repairs that we there. If we are able to get some additional roof work done on these sections, we would like to be able to negotiate that while the work is getting done. So I'd like both of those recommendations put forward to Council. Just to give you a little background on the tendering, we had 9 come to the site to visit. There were 6 of those groups that would qualify under our pre-qualification. All 6 of those groups did submit a bid, and on page 2 you'll see the different bids, how they came in. So we're confident in Provincial Industrial Roofing and Sheet Metal. They fall into our pre-qualified list of bidders, and our roof consultant has worked with them in the past, and they come with an excellent reputation. I think it's important to realize that this whole roof, you know, was probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure, and I think we're fooling ourselves not to think that each year we need to put maintenance on these roofs of these massive buildings. There are some serious challenges. This is 3 pieces of metal joined together where you see these red lines. That's where they overlap. It allows the roof to expand and contract in weather, but with that expansion and contraction creates havoc on those seals. And the same thing at the ends here where the metal ends come along. We get a lot of water in there, ice jacking, and just comes pouring in the building. So these solutions that are in this recommendation are going to allow for work to prevent that from happening in the future. With the flat roofs, there's no things listed in the roof report, but it's slumping, as they call it, which means it comes up on the walls, and the hooks are not holding any longer, so it's slumping down. And really, the fascia and metalwork that's over top was poorly installed initially, and now is definitely failing. It's all going to be replaced as part of this repair work. So we're comfortable with the recommendations that have been made, with the group that has been selected for the work, so I'm looking for council's approval to move forward on this project. The target date is to get started in May or early June. So our goal here, and their hard target date, they must have this all done by homecoming.
Archie?
I do have a question, but I will move the recommendation before I ask the question. Go with the low leverage.
Is Bailey seconds?
What's the warranty period with regards to the work?
This work?
Yeah.
It's in this tender document, and because it's a repair, I believe it's 2 years on parts and 1 on labor. But I can confirm that for you after I go back over there and look through this document. It's not the 15. If we were putting a new roof on, we would be looking at a 10 to 15 year labor material warranty by a third party. So when we go to a project where we replace a roof, that's the kind of warranty that this company provides.
Right. One more question. I don't know the lipping issues that we have with the seals on the roof. This isn't going to solve any of those, or is that going to solve many of those problems?
Where the water comes in here,
where they're joined with the steel on the top. When we were up on the roof that one time, and I know that the roofing is sort of connecting with a rubber gasket underneath.
Right.
But I think that's over
where the metal sheets overlap.
Yes.
Yes. This should solve some of that. Okay. Yes. They're recommending a topical placement of a product that is applied through the length of that will expand and contract with the roof and allow for some movement. However, and waterproofing. However, we can't expect that to last 40 years. We'll be back up there fixing this again. But it's going to save the inside infrastructure if we can prevent more of these leaks. And I have to say that most of the leaks that we did repair back in 2010 with the RINC grant are holding. Yeah, those ones are. We were up on the roof. There's a few maintenance issues around some of the HVAC that happened over time, but all of these roof details that we added here and here to lift all of the stacks and things that penetrate the building are all in excellent condition. And the work we did here on this piece here is in excellent condition. So those worked.
How is that? Person for the HST?
HST is out. I understand we would recoup the HST on this project, so we do not have to include it in the price.
Great.
So Pat, the balance to be $14,000 used to negotiate additional repairs detailed in the roof analysis. Well, is that not done in the contract?
As I mentioned, we have included everything that is included in the details and recommended work on what we call the sloped metal roof. So that's in the work. All the work on this flat roof here at the front of the building and the 2 canopy roofs. The work that has not been included in the scope of work for that price is on this roof and this roof here and this little teeny roof there. So we're planning to work with the bidder, the group that has been recommending to hire, and assuming we don't run into contingency issues on this work, see if we cannot add pieces of those roofs as well to the contract. We did not want to do the whole roof for fear that we would have a bid over $90,000, and it's always more challenging to reverse a price than it is to add work onto to negotiate a price. If we don't like the prices that are coming in, then we just do the work that is in with the scope of work, and we'll put that $14,500 into reserves for the next time we bid out this work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it does. thought that it was in the analysis, it was in there, just the same as the rest of it was for, the rest of the project was when there's detailed analysis done. But that detailed analysis is not done in other sections.
The detailed analysis is done, and the list of things that need to be done to fix it is done. We did not include it in our scope of work to tender the price on. So we can go back now, and if we hire provincial industrial roofing and sheet metal, ask for some of that work to be included, and for what price, and negotiate as much as we can get in. As we've seen with other projects, if I were to tender the whole roof out, and these came in at $105,000, then we would be sitting in a situation where I'd be coming back for more funds, which we did not budget for. And instead, this is, as you can see, this is 8 different roofs. So we've taken out pieces of the roof work and said, just bid on this, give us a price on that. And we'll go back and see if we can get excellent pricing on getting some of this work done. But it's crystal balling what the bids are going to come in at. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't come over. I don't know if, Don, you want to add to comments on how many times we end up coming in over and how difficult it is to now cut out that work in those bids without going to a retender process.
Archie?
I would take it as well. You've gone through and done like sort of a risk assessment or priority assessment on the areas. That's how you came to the determination that these were the areas you wanted to tackle first and include them in the tender.
Yes. These areas here are where the public are and where our primary leaks are.
Bernie?
Just so we all understand what you're telling us is you're keeping the 15 or 17, $14,000. You're not going to have to do any more work until you're sure you do not have to use it on the main scope that you're doing now.
Correct.
Thank you.
You want to read the motion?
There's 2 motions, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the first motion is that it's recommended that North Huron hire provincial industrial roofing and sheet metal company limited to perform the roof maintenance work outlined in the tender document. North Huron West Gas Community Complex roof repairs 2014 for the price of $69,965. It's been moved by Councilor McGowan, seconded by Councilor Bailey.
All in favor of the motion? Carried.
I made the motion.
Read it, please.
Okay. Second motion is that it's recommended that Council direct North Huron Director of Recreation Facilities to negotiate additional roof repairs identified in the roof diagnostic analysis for the North Huron West Gas Community Complex. Roof decks 1.1 and 1.2 and canopy roofs 1.2 and 1.3, and to stay within the allocated $90,000 budget for the entire project.
McGowan and Rod?
Yes.
You were nodding, I didn't see your hand. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Pat. And moving to point 6, Gary, do you want to handle that?
Just wanted to note that our Director of Fire Emergency Services has provided a report from the Fire Department for the month of April, and a copy of that report has been put on the desk.
Thank you. Okay, moving to new business. Gary, do you want to elaborate on that?
You should have a copy of the letter from Captain McNitch, commanding officer. And I just wanted to note that, just by way of background, on April 28th, Mr. Harper declared May 9th as the National Day of Honor for Canadian Forces members who gave their lives in Afghanistan. The 543 Royal Canadian Air Cadets would like to honor these members by holding a ceremony at the Cenotaph on Friday evening at 6:30. It's requested that the portion of Veterans Road be closed in front of the Cenotaph to hold this ceremony.
Down and reach. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Moving to council information, councilors can bring any points forward for more attention as they see fit. Right.
In the accounts, the events in Cunningham, Wednesday, Justin Services, $3,246.
That was for an incident that we had with a child that was with the daycare, and we had to have our security masters come in and make sure that we have all the health procedures in care of that.
Bernie?
Page one. I have page 1.5, actually 2 page ones down here. Both of them TDVs that we use a Bigfoot subscription for $1,144, and then the very next page we have a Bigfoot subscription for the same amount.
That's Dawn's. That's a preventative maintenance software that Dawn uses, and that's one page is water and one page is sewer. Because they split it 50/50.
So it's just one thing, it just costs $2,000.
Okay. Go ahead.
One more quick one. I got to Wilder's cleaning here. We're still using that before. Is that because of staff? Or is that because
We have Wilder's cleaners at the daycare, fire hall, town hall, police station, and yeah, and they are in lieu of a janitor position. Yes.
I have a question about number 3, item number 3. And this is not in the accounts. You want to stick with the accounts, please?
Go to it.
Okay, I'm concerned about the lack of change in the provincial policy statement, the new version that is coming out. And it seems that there's not a great deal of change. This is in spite of a lot of ministers promising us all kinds of things over the last 3 or 4 years, being sensitive to the rural problems and so on. And by the same token, our own organization, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, I don't think has been very active really in supporting the special situations with respect to rural communities. And our own Roma has not been all that helpful either. And of course, their reports all have to go through AMO before they reach the government. So I'm thinking that we ought to be, or perhaps the next council, taking a greater interest in supporting Roma and being more active on the boards and the panels and so on, because we have peculiar situations in this particular rural community, which is not the same as a lot of other rural communities. I think we need to create a voice to represent those circumstances. I just open that up for discussion.
Okay, and thank you. And I concur that basically getting us from strictly agricultural to even getting rural, it's a very small step. The one thing that I am party to is work by a number of people through Huron County primarily, but there's work on creating a rural lens to overlook things, and I believe that work is progressing fairly strongly, and that they're getting a lot closer to having some public input and possibly bringing forward what their surveys have got going.
Because I'm on that panel, and the work that they've done is really quite effective. But I'm not sure that that's getting through the Roma AMO process. It'll be a great tool for council members, and it'll be a great tool for talking to leaders, but I think we need to have a formal link somehow between us and our neighbors and the powers of government.
Okay. Noted. Bernie?
Just to follow up on Brock's talking about, I'd just like to touch on the corporation of the county of Huron and their planning and development department. And pretty well, I'm just going to tell you a few things I jotted down when I read through this. I don't see any mention of job growth, no mention of industrial commercial growth, no mention of tax-based growth, no mention of population growth, or stabilizing taxes. It does say a 20-year plan, but it doesn't say what kind of plan they have. And if you look above that, it does say 20 years in the county of farming agriculture area. Yes, it is, but we do have towns. We do have people that need jobs too. So every time I come across something like this, it just seems to be a perfectly political statement. But I really don't see where it advances this 1 inch in 3 years. Just by putting that out to you.
Good. This is provincial policy statement, and this is how much we can change the provincial attitude. And that, as Brock said, this rural lens is probably our best chance, our best attribute by bringing it forward as it develops a bit more. Brock?
I understand that Roma is working again, or continuing work, or maybe reviving work on rural lens at that level as well. One of the interesting things that's come out of the Huron discussion on this is the fact that rural is not always equal in terms of concept from one place to another. Like, we have particular problems that the rural areas in northern Ontario can't even dream of, and likewise in reverse. But again, they're working on this rural lens, but as far as I know, they've been working on that for about 5 or 6 years, and I haven't seen any documentation come out of it that's of any significance. So somehow, I think we need to get our feet wet and get in there.
Trying not to belabor this, but I attended a rural networking workshop. It was primarily university researchers and staff from municipalities, counties, health units. I was very surprised that I think I was the only elected one there. And they were trying to put together what research projects they could put together to benefit the policymakers or the elected councils. First and foremost, I think it was coming from too much from the academic side rather than down to earth, and that is a problem that we have. And when Brock said, well, what is rural? There was a guy from Omafra, lives in Norfolk. Oh well, that's okay, and Norfolk has put together their community transportation. Where the bus goes from the 5 spots, and they're 5 days a week, it's consistent. Well, that just doesn't work for the population density that we have here when we're calling ourselves rural. So
I'd like to make a motion that we ask our CAO clerk to look into the process of our becoming more active and more directly involved, and make a determination as to whether we would be wise to have one or two council members join one of these organizations and do some analysis of what our local problems are and find out to what extent they can be addressed by those organizations.
Bailey is seconding. Further discussion? That's maybe a little open-ended, but I think you completely understand the principles you're to work under. Yes. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Dave.
We received a letter in our package from the beer store, and I guess they're working very, very hard to protect the existence of the beer stores and so on. And I don't object to that, but what I do object to is the tone that they're saying that only the beer store should be able to sell beer and liquor, and especially in towns like Blythe where our food markets sell beer and liquor. And if we talk to the owners, they'll tell you that the beer and the liquor store, liquor sales are what is keeping them in business. And I think to restrict beer sales only to beer stores is going to negatively impact some of our businesses in our small communities and probably force them to close. So I don't support that letter from the beer store.
That statement is just your own opinion.
That's stated in my opinion.
That's fair. Brock.
I'd like to comment on that. I think that we're in the situation where we need to establish our policy on alcohol for the township, for our facilities and so on. So I would rather that we don't take a firm position now in case it might be in conflict with what we find is necessary down the road. But I think it's something that we need to keep in mind, and certainly as we develop a policy, we're working with the Chief Poole on establishing this policy, but our hands are kind of tied at the moment because there are so many decisions that aren't being made at the provincial level.
Municipal level.
Provincial level.
Okay. There's a number of things coming through, and I think it's going to be an education for looking at a number of points in our municipal alcohol policy too. So, okay. Other points, Gary.
Thank you, Reeve. Just wanted to highlight point number 9, that the funeral service in Ontario is celebrating 100 years as a licensed profession. And in fact, they're asking communities across the province to pay tribute to our funeral professionals by proclaiming this week, May 4th to the 11th, as Funeral Professionals Week. And you'll note that they've included a proclamation for your consideration.
Okay.
Sorry, motion.
Well, if you want, you want to make the motion for the proclamation? Okay. Alan Hannan, second. Alan. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Brock?
We read, order, and file these items.
I found what I did.
That's correct.
Number
James?
4.
Four.
Trail. I think North Denbury has a very good letter here. Will the municipality or property owners where the trail crosses be responsible for any liability? I know that there has been people who have gone up snowmobile trails, and the farmers have been held liable for the damage that was done. Court is an issue in court right now. It's pulled out of our township, pulled out of our county, it's taken to Toronto. The landowner now has $70,000 tied up in legal fees because he is not liable and he's trying to protect himself. So I would like to know where the liability lies here. If it's a trail area and they are fully responsible, if somebody goes off that trail and goes on to somebody, I don't have any property on it, but if I have property on that trail, that would be a real big issue for me as a liability.
Brock?
The only comment I would have on it is that there's nothing to keep them from going off the trail now. The fact that it becomes a formal trail might increase the traffic to some extent, but the liability is still there and the issue is still there, regardless of whether the trail is authorized by this organization.
My concern is this farmer trail went through his property, and the guy went off the trail and struck another snowmobile, and he's being sued. And his legal fees right now are $70,000, and that was 4 years ago.
That's bad.
So my concern is the liability. Who's carrying the liability for this trail? The county? The Trail Association? Who's carrying the liability that if they come off and we have laneways that cross the trail? There's a lot of liabilities here.
There's a lot of things, basically, I am one of the 2 county councilors that is to follow up on some of this at a meeting put on by the Perth County Planning Department in Perth County. It was last Tuesday night that I attended. That question was addressed and the statement was made that the ones in the Trail Association would have to carry the liability insurance or something like that. I'm not saying it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. I know that there was one email came out, oh well, the trail would be all put together within the next few months and that we were closing in on it. From that meeting in Perth County, I would think there was 5 or 10 county councilors from Perth at that meeting. I don't think they're moving on it anytime soon. They are ahead of Huron County Council. There's an agreement in principle from Huron County Council to allow staff to gather information and study. There is 1 or 2 very strongly in favor on Huron County Council. The rest are all in a wait and see attitude. It's something that it is being sold as almost a done deal. Huron and Perth counties, not to my viewing of the meetings I've seen. I know 125 adjacent owners in Huron County were sent a survey through one of the farm organizations. There is over a 50% return in written comments. That is how strong that it is. I don't have any information on for or against or anything in the comments. I understand there's something over 80 pages of comments. So that it isn't something that I see moving very fast. Sorry for taking up so much time.
Well, it's an important issue.
It's a very important issue.
Okay. We will move to the motion to receive and file. Brock made. Do we have a seconder? Yeah. All in favor? Carried. Moving to committee reports. Blind business improvement area. There's the minutes there. Is there anything to add? There are questions of Dave. Okay. Moving to bylaws. Bylaw number 26, 2014, being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council a municipal funding agreement between the Association of Municipalities and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron for federal gas funding. Ray, first, second, and third. James seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw number 27, 2014. Being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between Maitland River Community Church and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to move the limiting distance for the proposed addition to the church. James, moving. Okay. Reach seconds. Any discussion? You just got back in time, Doug. All in favor?
Thank you very much.
You want to withdraw the request?
You've seen me do that before.
Moving to council reports and inquiries.
I wondered if we might go ahead and have the man's property raised sold.
Surplus.
I would make that
Okay. Seconder for that. James. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Other points? Well, I'll stick one in. For our next council meeting, we will be going to a Tuesday night. So thank you very much for allowing me to spend my 30th wedding anniversary without having to come to a council meeting.
There you go. So we didn't ever give you
Are you taking this out for dinner?
Yeah, your weekend to go out.
No, I only get family on the wedding anniversary like that.
I thought we were family.
Yeah. We spend more time together.
Very good. No other points? Okay. Moving to the clerk administrator's report.
Okay, thank you, Reed. Just a couple of things. You'll see in this week's Advance Times and next week's edition as well that there will be an advertisement regarding the Westario Power Board of Directors vacancy. And so there's an advertisement in the paper seeking qualified individuals, and we're asking them to submit a resume by next Friday at 1 o'clock. Resume detailing their or outlining their experience and qualifications. And secondly, our planner is preparing a report and recommendation regarding Wingham Creek, and that is scheduled to appear to be on the February 21st agenda. So that's, what did I say? February. It's not February. May 21st.
You've hardly got any warm weather there. Just feels like.
Yes, it really does. So, and that's to do with the Wingham Creek draft plan approval and zoning bylaw. That's for me. Also wanted to share my time with Connie.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring your attention to the notice on your desks about an upcoming meeting regarding the possibility of forming a farmers market. As you know, there has been some interest from community members. There has been a couple of meetings at the Wingham BIA table, and we've talked to some people from the Katy market and the Hanover market, just kind of trying to feel out what would be involved in it. So I've met with Nancy. Mickey is actually representing Morris Turnberry, and we're kind of looking at this as a partnership to see if we can't get something going in the area. So Nancy and myself and Pat Campbell, who is really actually the community member that is really keen to see this going, has met with Joan Brady from the County of Huron. She has extensive experience in farmers market. And she had a meeting just a couple of weeks ago on In the Mood for Food, a local food meeting. She held one here in Wingham. She's holding them around the county. At that meeting, she did sort of push the information forward from this meeting. It will be held on May 14th at the Hot Stove Lounge. And again, this is just a meeting to see if people are interested in actually seeing this project move forward, coming out, maybe forming a steering committee, looking at options. So if you know of anybody who might be interested in that, please pass it on.
Thanks, Connie. Gary. Okay. Moving to public gallery questions or comments.
I guess this is for Treasury or somebody, but I've been looking through trying to figure out where we did some logging down at the gravel pit on Wellnosh, and I can't find anywhere where the logging money went, that they took the logs out of there. You're supposed to submit bids and everything else, and I can't seem to find where they are, how much it was, and where the money went.
That's to do with the pit lights, with the rehabilitation of the pit. And so Kelly looked after all that, and all that money has been set aside in a pit reserve for future maintenance of that.
How much was it?
Off the top of my head.
That wasn't this meeting. So
it's in the finances, it's part of financing, so.
I can send it to you. I can send it to you.
She can give it to you. This section is
No,
more things that we do in this meeting.
Don't get told.
Oh. You're out of order.
I'm out of order?
Yes.
That's a question about financing.
Are you going to quit waving your hands at me, or are you leaving?
Hands right here.
This is for things that come before this meeting. What?
Financing is part of the meeting. I read the finance statements. It wasn't in the finance statements, so I just wanted to know where it was.
It was in previous finance statements. It was not part of this meeting.
I couldn't find it in previous finance statements.
I'm sorry. Donna said she would dig into it for you.
It's fine. Am I allowed to ask other questions? Or you just need to
those questions are meant to be asked during business hours, where that if you want to ask questions in this part of the meeting, this refers definitely to things that are in this briefing notes for the meeting. We do not ask staff to have months and months of information together.
It says Department Reports, Director of Finance. I just
Archie.
want to know.
Perhaps I can provide Mr. Brock with some clarification.
Great, actually, great.
Great. So my apologies.
Thank you, Don. I just wanted to know that. I thought it was in this report. I could explain that, shut me down, but
Go ahead. I was being talked over, so I wasn't sure. So just to provide some clarification, so the items that was in the report this evening, I believe, was the financial checklist. And I think what you're referring to is a question inside the financial checklisting to do with another amount, which I'm sure Don will be more than glad to get the information passed along.
Yes.
Just to give some clarity.
thank you. But I've asked 3 times for a report, and nobody got back. 3 times I asked council. Thanks, Jim.
Your Worship, this is the first time I've heard of this, so I just missed that in. Anyway, carry on.
Other members of the gallery, questions or comments? Trevor?
Couple of questions on the grass cutting. One comment actually. I think the RFP process is a good one. I think that leaves for transparency and understanding what specifications, what they're responsible for, what we are responsible for. I think that just clearly states everybody's expectation, and then there's no second guess. My question, 2 questions would be from regards to the payback calculation. What will if that process was to happen, what would that equipment be utilized for then? So if we bought equipment in 2010 and saying we've used it the last 4 years, what would that equipment then be utilized for?
The tractor, probably just lower hours, it would last longer. On the mower, I'm not sure whether it would be used any other place or not. It's sort of a specific mower.
So the reason why I asked that question is that in the payback, we're using equipment costs in the savings. So if we're not really saving that equipment anywhere, that's really not a savings to the payback. So that's why I want to make sure that if we're going to sell that piece of equipment and get some money for it, then great. But I just wasn't sure what that was going to be utilized after if that was go forward.
That's a really good question. I think one of the things, we don't know what, Kelly's not here unfortunately tonight. I think we should get an answer for Trevor for the next meeting. I'm surmising that it likely has to do with extension of life of equipment, but we should get clarification from Kelly so that Trevor has that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And my second question was, I just understand, what will the staff time be reallocated to, or was that the one position that was here today? So my question is that one position, that's all that person did, was cut the grass?
There was other things, and we are trying to go with staff without replacing that position.
Okay.
There was also a staff member from Live that resigned this year, and that person was replaced by a person that was reassigned. So we've actually reduced staff by 2.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So the other question was regards to contracts, especially this one. So it's probably not news that I am on the nomination for the next election. And I see these contracts come up every so often where 14, 15, and 16, and 5 years and 10 years. I just want to make sure that what the council understands where their deadline is to lock in councils from going forward. Like, I guess my concern is that I'm not guessing whether I am or not. I'm just, it is what it is. It's just that if I'm a councilor and I get elected, I don't want to be held with a bucket that's given me agreements that maybe I wasn't informed. I just want to understand if what that, I don't know that, I can't remember what the deadline is. So
I was going to ask through you, Your Worship. I know the clerk gave a report on this maybe three weeks ago. Can we go over that again, Gary, just to pull because he raises a valid point, and I think you probably know that deadline off the top of your head. And I know it depends on the percentage of counselors that are turning over too. Right. So, right. Okay. Trevor, you may recall the report that I prepared regarding restricted acts. It's also called a lame duck period. And as you know, nominations close September 12th. And so after September 12th, council is restricted in the acts and their decisions, depending on the composition of a new council in fall. But essentially, council after September 12th cannot make any decisions or expenditures or incur any liabilities over or exceeding $50,000. There's provisions about terminating staff and a couple other things. So there's 4 specific restricted acts.
So September, basically, it's the date after the nomination closes. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. That's correct.
Okay.
It goes from there until the end of November, because typically a new council is sworn in early December.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I just couldn't remember. I couldn't go back to find when that date was, and I just wanted to clarify. The trail liability. I think in my comment is, I think it's in every life that is a function of insurance. And it's a big, who knows what's going to happen. The part for me is in the portion in the hearing county minutes was they say the users of the trail are ultimately responsible, and the landowner is only responsible if they have reckless or damaged. Okay,
reckless endangerment.
I understand what you can tell me. However, the reality is that if somebody wants to put their name on a liability suit, they're going to do it. And I'm not sure having somebody. I'm not sure there is anybody out there that is going to say that, from a trail perspective, that the adjacent landowner is not responsible for anything. If they do, let me know, because I would love to know them. But that's my comment with regards to the liability part. It's everyday life, and that's where insurance is a big detriment to a lot of things. Thank you for your time.
I don't know if this is new business, but it has to do with your roof. I'm glad you get a repair, but is there any way to move into the times? I'm not saying your roof, but if you have to fix Wingham Township buildings, if we can start going green. If green, like maybe not the whole thing, but start going green. We got the pumps outside for electric. You paid for that. Why not see about going green? It only works on flat roofs, right? And if you can't get those the ones fixed, that $14,000. See about if the roof will support the weight to go green on that, so that the rainwater sucks up and hopefully the waterfall in your back. But just a suggestion to see about maybe start going green. We're doing parts of it. Let's see about going a little further if we can go green, and maybe we can get some government funding that way too.
I like the idea of the rainwater. I would just to review the speaker that we did investigate a number of years ago putting solar panels on some of the municipal roofs. Now, it didn't work out for one reason or another, but we are looking into.
I don't mean solar panels.
No, I realize.
I mean grass
Rain.
and stuff that grows on the roof. It's a green roof, so that it only works on flat roofs.
Right.
So that you don't have the rainwater, it goes into the. But I figure there's got to be some kind of weight requirement for the building and stuff. So
definitely the engineering.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I figured try and go. I was just going to mention that I'm more than happy to ask the roof consultant about that. I've never asked him that specific question. I'm quite sure that there are. I've seen them in the GTA area and in urban areas where the large. They look nice. Yeah, they're out there, the LEED roofs, LEED roofs, and I'm not sure whether our roof would qualify or architecturally be sound, but I'm more than happy to
But
ask
it's
that
something to
question.
look into though, like it's something to, you know, even for future buildings or something, you know, if we can go green, less maintenance, hopefully.
Well, we could use the mower. Just kidding. But I will ask that question because I have never asked that question, and it's a good one. So I'll get back to council. All right.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dylan.
To Gary, so I was just wondering, is the West Ontario board position only open to Wingham ratepayers?
That's correct.
That is
because West Ontario Power provides power to the town of Wingham, where Hydro One provides power to the village of Blythe. And
it had never come up before, so I just wanted to be sure.
The rationale is the former PUC was strictly the Wingham ward. And they chose to go with West Ontario rather than South.
Yes. Again, on the complex, you were saying when you possibly do this mortgage burning that you want to make sure that Knights of Columbus continue paying their grant or their pledges they made when it was built. I was just wondering, I had in all the meetings I've been here, you talked about Knights of Columbus. I've never heard what they pay for rent.
I can get back to that, Rep. I think their yearly pledge amount payment is somewhere around $12,500. They pay a portion for utilities. They pay a portion for snow removal. They pay a percentage of the deficit. I think on an annual basis, if you were to add up all of their payments, whether it's the pledge amount, contribution to utilities, Donna, would it be $40,000 a year? 45?
Between 40 and 45.
You know, mine works up to $7,200 for my rent plus all the utilities I have to pay. That's still not what are they paying for rent.
Archie may be a better one to talk about it. When the complex was built, the hall was to be the Knights of Columbus Hall. And so that with the way things were set up, they have the use of that conditional on them paying the other fees to the municipality, so that they provide certain things to the municipality, basically at an extremely favorable rent to the municipality. Things like the blood donor clinics and things like that, they kick that stuff into the municipality. So it's all part and parcel of the bigger thing, and that I'm going off rough ballpark figures in my head, but 40 to 45,000 a year is actually money that comes back to the municipality. But there's a number of other things that were in the original agreements that we can't change.
So in other words, they're not paying rent. They're just paying utilities and then pay.
I think they originally were going to be building their own building, and part of the agreement was, I think Westcast approached them when the building complex was going on, if I recall correctly, it was a long time ago now, that they would put their pledge amount and funding and build with the complex. And so their amount that they pay yearly goes towards paying down their portion of their pledge and their debt for that portion of the building. And Pat may be able to give some more.
No, I was just going to say, you're all on track. A rent is paid in a lease agreement. This is a lease agreement. And so the word rent is not used inside the agreement. So there would be never any word saying how much rent do they pay. That doesn't mean that they don't pay their portion of expenses and use of the space and original capital on the building. It's hard to explain that it's not a lease as you would traditionally have in a commercial lease setup, because it is not rented to them. It's a partnership with them. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's why we're all kind of saying, well, it's not that they don't pay rent, it's that it's not called rent
Yeah, because
in the
nowhere
agreement.
it shows that.
Yeah, so the word rent is not used, but partnership and agreement, joint use agreement is how that is worded. And I mean, we have, the copy is available. It's a public document, it's a bylaw, but it is, it's been 13 years of agreements going back and forth. And they do pay their fair share of their expenses to make sure that, and we also work with them to make sure they're viable and that they get back to the complex as well. So it's a great partnership. Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Umberto? Okay. Moving to an in-camera session, you want to reasons for that?
Yes, we have one camera item for tonight, specifically advice subject to strict privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, specifically
Excuse me, I can't hear.
cross-border services agreement, municipal service negotiations.
Okay, motion to go in camera, Rodden and Callahan. All in favor? Carried.